Hey guys, welcome back to part 6 of our chain simulation series. Today, we're going to finish on the wooden posts and lengthen our chains through the holes in the wooden posts. So one more thing is that this object here, this model, has significantly less polygons than the LOD0 chain object, and yet it's like a bigger object that we're going to be using that has more visual impact on the scene. So really, when you think about it, all of these posts, like combined, all of the ones that we're going to be using are going to be much less intensive than the chains. And again, these chains also have like physics simulation and collision applied to them. These are obviously, we're also going to add collision to this, is that we're going to make them look, I guess we're going to just, edge selection mode. Definitely we want to be in edge selection. So just the top edges here, we're going to select the top edges. So all of the top edges. So we don't have everything selected because we have the select hidden option off. So I guess it wouldn't like hold shift and deselect some of these things that we also have selected here. I'll just undo that. I don't want to select this different. Am I not right-clicking and dragging to rotate this thing? Okay. Shift select this edge as well, because I don't really want this like triangular diagonal edge to be selected as either. So I'm going to select the bevel option. And what this is going to do is it's going to smooth the selected edges by adding a slanted face that connects the two adjacent faces. I'm also going to hit the plus icon, which is going to give you, basically the only option that it gives you is the distance, but still you definitely want to click the plus icon on the options that have the plus icon, especially if it's your first time using that option. Maybe it might have like your last thing selected. In that case, like if you're doing something like really frequently, you might not want this plus icon. I'm going to set it to, I set the thickness of this cube, so like the X size and the Z size to something like, I set it to 0.6, so definitely keep that in mind. I'm going to select 0.3, which is half of that, and this is going to add a slanted 45-degree face. And now we're just going to select bevel. Definitely not what we're wanting. Maybe it has like some other, yeah, okay, maybe we should have done this before we do the Boolean operation. Mistakes like that. That's why I'm keeping the cube and cylinder I want to modify in this case before adding the Boolean tool, which definitely creates like a mess of the mesh. So definitely use it kind of as something that you should use before modeling some of the most final touches to something. So this would have like a really low number of like triangles or something like before we add the Boolean. It's definitely creating like more triangles than we need to like make that kind of shape, which is definitely not a good thing. So it's definitely an experimental thing. So again, we're going to select the bevel tool, plus icon. It has my last choice selected here, and now just select bevel. So I set this to like, 0.6. So okay, so 0.3 is half of 0.6. So technically it should reach the middle. Undo that, it's like 0.15. Okay, so that definitely looks better. And one thing that we can also do is, because these edges, they definitely would look sharp. However, we can kind of reduce the sharpness of these edges by beveling them a slight amount again. So what we're going to do is to set this to something low. 0.15 is how much this is, so maybe 0.01. Maybe let's try that. And as you can see here, it's created definitely like a very slight beveling effect. It might be hard to see with this edge selection, but once we have this unselected here, sharp corners like this never really exist in the real world. So that's why I'm doing the bevel operation here. Now I'm just going to select this, experimental Boolean. And I'm doing this again because I made that stupid mistake. The one that you want to modify first and the one that you want to use to modify your first object in the right slot. Subtraction. Okay, so, and it's also created the dog's breakfast of the mesh. Maybe I might just not do this whole optimization with this again, because, and I didn't do this last time I kind of tried to. Okay, so now we're going to be adding collision to this wooden post that we might be able to create a mesh collider. However, with the chains, using the whole model mesh for each of the chain links would not be a really good idea, and it's definitely kind of faulty, like using mesh colliders with the chain collision. I haven't found it to work right. Maybe I can decrease the like fixed time step to like an extremely low amount, but you know, that's just, it's very expensive. And also it works like using multiple box collider components on all of these chains. Okay, so what we're going to do, that's basically the same thing that we're going to do for this wooden post, because again, the Boolean operation created this kind of rat's nest of this mesh. So we might not want to use a mesh collider. Add component, you just like collapse all of these, box collider. So now we're going to go into kind of this back view. Actually, definitely want to be viewing the hole that we just created in the mesh. So now what we're going to do is essentially to set the size of this box collider. The thickness of this box collider in this direction should be like the size of this, and of course the kind of set to the size of the cube, which is definitely a good thing. Choose edit collider, and we can go in here and maybe adjust the size of this thing, and maybe, okay, a bit like that. Okay, that's definitely a good thing. Select the copy component option, right click on the box collider component again, or any component, paste component as new. So because we're pasting it, it's pasting it onto the object, and it doesn't really matter which one that we right click on. Interesting, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to basically want to negate the center value of the axis that is perpendicular to the hole. So we're going to negate, in this case it's the z-axis, so we're going to negate the z-axis field here, an adjacent side already done for us. We're going to add another box collider here, and choose the edit option and bring this up a bit. Oh, actually, maybe the first edit that we want to make is like this. And now we're going to, I guess, just copy and paste as new. And then we're going to move it here on the y-axis a bit, and then change the size to something like 0.2 or something like that. Move it on the y-axis here. And we can also just choose edit collider here. So we can just move these points around maybe here. And now we have the collision set up with a few box colliders on this wooden post, and we have the hole. We can use this to feed the chains through it, and it will actually behave realistically. One thing you also need to be aware of is that I was in edge selection mode, and I accidentally like selected one of these faces and just like modified the geometry. And what this is going to do is it's going to recalculate the convex of every single one of these colliders. So single one of them is going to be kind of default, like the shape of this cube, which you don't want. So I've had to redo it. So be aware of that and try not to do that by accident. Not for the chains either, definitely not. So now we're going to select this chain. So I've already positioned the chains, like all of these chains, in a way that just right here, and now we're going to instantiate them. Oh no! Okay, so I just did it in the wrong way. Definitely might want to delete every one of these, and these don't as well. We're going to now reverse this, and we also don't want any rotation on the y-axis, so I guess it might have just been making these the exact same positions, like basically just overlapping versions of this. Very impressive coincidence. Okay, so it's 0, apply. Oh, I said it's 0. So minus 0.15, and maybe just hit apply again here. Oh, maybe I selected the wrong chain. Okay, so what we're going to do essentially here is to create more chains, just straight line of just a bunch more chains. I guess that might be enough. So now we've created an extremely long line of chains, and we're also going to move this just a tiny bit, maybe just to be a bit closer in. I love how in isometric mode they're all like lined up. You can see them in a totally different way. Hold down Command and press D to duplicate this object. and maybe move it. And we might want to make these a bit smaller as well. We could scale them down, I guess, because so relative to the chains, they're definitely a bit smaller than before. So now we are going to just hit play and simulate. Maybe just deselect maximize here so we can see more closely what's happening. Maybe it's like the collision that's breaking. Maybe like the chains inset into the colliders or something. Oh, definitely are. Maybe this one's in the right place, but maybe they're just like slightly slanted or something. I don't know. Move it like this, and this one like that. They seem kind of more gradually changed. So that one was the starting one. It wasn't offset, but maybe it was like slightly slanted or something in a way that it just like slightly offset the ones that I wasn't really paying attention to. So another thing that we can do is to make this look a bit more appealing, because currently, especially these stakes, everything is white except for the chains. They're metallic, and specifically these wooden posts, they have this kind of like this image, this default prototype thing that comes with ProBuilder, I guess. What we're going to do is to make them look more appealing, so we're going to give these stakes a brown material and the quad like a green material. So we already have in this materials folder a green material like for testing the LOD by changing the color of the chain material. We're going to apply this to the quad. That looks way better. And also we might want to set the smoothness to something a bit lower. Now we're going to set the material that is in the mesh renderer on all of the wooden posts to a brown material. So we haven't got that in our scene yet. Create material, and then we'll just name this brown wooden post. Change the albedo color. Just going to choose something like orange red and set it to something low, maybe a bit less saturated. Something like that, I guess. Definitely very dark, but definitely suitable. I don't know if it was that dark last time. Okay, so just apply this to all of them, and you can see that that looks much more appealing. Of course, very simple and casual looking. Not like, if this was a game, then this would be the worst game ever. Since we're just doing this, this definitely looks more appealing, and that's impressive. At least a bit impressive for what we're doing right now. And since we're not maximum... No! This is like completely centered. Maybe almost. Maybe just center these things a bit more. At least try. Maybe just try our best to center these things. Maybe... Oh, they're definitely like slightly slanted. You can see that kind of. But definitely... Okay, let's just hit play. And you can still see that happens. Okay, so what it's doing, it actually did reset the colliders again, even though we didn't modify the geometry. I guess maybe I just like entered edge selection mode or something, and apparently it thinks you're modifying the geometry, so it resets the convex for every single one of these box colliders. So we're going to have to do this for all of them, which can be a pain, especially if we had to just do this whole procedure on all of them manually. However, we can multiply select all of them, all of these objects, and we can reset the collision. So you definitely do not want to use the edit collider option, because it will only modify the collider on the object that you are selecting. It won't modify all of them. So you need to basically just set these values here, which can take quite a bit of experimentation, I guess. So that's going to be fun. We're going to select maybe 0.2. Okay, so Z, maybe that, 0.1. That seems good. So 0.24, and enter a non-negative version of this one just to make it a bit simpler. We're also going to have to do this whole thing, just like hex edit like we did for this, okay? Oh, not edit collider, no. So when batch editing collision for these objects, do not select the edit collider option. We want to do this because, again, we have all these like reset for no reason other than up their Y position just a bit, maybe decrease their size, up it. That's perfect. Okay, so 0.545. Okay, set the center for this one to be something like this, maybe. And just kind of go down here. That's going to be good enough for now, probably. Okay, so set the smoothness down to something really low because we're dealing with wood, and wood has a very low reflectivity. So now let's test this again, which will do that again, I guess. Doesn't look like we have all of this, like these left ones. We did this stuff after. Oh my god. Okay, so it turns out there was definitely a problem with all of these, the collision for all these posts, which, I mean, we just did this, like batch perform the action to all of them. I was not expecting that, certainly. Hit play, and that should happen. It looks as though we're a bit too low, and we could decrease the size of these stakes because the hole more than big enough for all of these, like for the size of these chains, and it looks, we could definitely scale these down, but that is really cool. And now we have a game, and we can just interact with these chains here. Can we just jump on top of them, on top of the stake? We definitely can do that. So we're on top of these things here. It's definitely really cool.